Tony Blazier for the Motocross Vault presented by Blinzall. If you're in the market for some high-quality racing oil for your two-stroke or four, make sure you go to blinzall.com and use our discount code VAULT20 to save 20% at checkout. Thank you for all the support. Hello and welcome back to the Motocross Vault. This is Tony Blazier, and what this video is going to cover is just a quick look back at my thoughts on the first 3 rounds of the motocross season here for 2021. I'm personally a huge motocross fan, like probably almost all of you out there who ride. I grew up racing motocross, not supercross. I've actually never even been on a real supercross track other than to walk at a pro race. And motocross is where my heart is. I love watching that racing, and I'm always psyched from the series. You know, supercross is fun. I love watching it, of course, but pretty much burn out on it by the time the season ends. I'm ready for something different, and it's great to have such a change of pace because motocross is a very different sport than supercross. Certainly the tracks are completely different, the pace of the racing, much longer motos, and kind of brings out the different skill sets of the riders. So I love motocross. I know a lot of people, kind of favor supercross, but for me, motocross is where it's at. And I think this year so far has been great. It's been, first and foremost, awesome to have the races back to some sense of normal. Last year was a weird year with COVID and everything, and even though it was awesome to see the racing, it just had a really different feel. There were very few fans, if any, at some of the races, and the schedule's all weird, and it just felt like a really kind of a unique year in so many ways. And this year, motocross and everything else in a lot of ways is getting back to normal, and it's been a great series so far. 3 rounds in, I've really enjoyed the racing. Yesterday was High Point, and I thought that track was awesome. I do love the fact, too, that I think probably mostly because of weather conditions, they haven't ripped the tracks as deep, and it hasn't been kind of the same universal type of soil, it seems like. And actually, Thunder Valley and here, they had a great variety of soil. Actually, at first I thought it was going to be a mud bog. The racing started out with the rain. I was like, it looked like just really greasy and slick out there, but then the sun came out a little bit, dried out, and became a really racy track, I thought. It looked like, personally, I would have been terrified out there with those ruts. It was probably sketchy to ride, but I think it brought out some great racing. Yesterday's race was awesome in both classes. It's been really good overall, I'd say. It's been a surprising series in some ways. I think coming into it, I certainly didn't think that Dylan Ferrandis would be the man to beat, and after watching 3 rounds, it really feels like it could be his year. There's been so many guys who have won in the 250 class. AP is a perfect example of that, who was really, really great in the year he won in the 250, moves it to the 450s, don't really do anything initially. Even Cooper Webb, a guy who I'm a huge fan of, who just came off a Supercross title. A lot of people discount, think, oh, he doesn't ride outdoors that well. He's a Supercross guy. He's a 250 national champion. He won 2 Supercross titles in the 250 class and then won an outdoor title. So not like you can say the guy doesn't have outdoor skill. It just hasn't really come together. I don't know whether he's having a little bit of that hangover from Supercross. Maybe it kind of sucks that, just like all the public, the riders and the manufacturers focus so much on Supercross. A lot of times these guys, if they're not in the title fight, they just kind of discount riding for it. And I understand him. I'm sure he probably wasn't doing much in the way of prep before the season. And it kind of shows on the track. Other than maybe one moto, he hasn't really been at the front. Again, I'm a big Cooper Webb fan. I was hoping this year would be, his year to kind of come out, do like Jeremy McGrath did when everybody was saying how he's like a specialist and do much better outdoors. That could still happen. We're only 3 rounds in, but so far I'd say that Cooper Webb's results have been pretty lackluster and disappointing. Ferrandis, to his credit, he's not suffering the same kind of issues. He is coming out there and taking the bull by the horns, and he's been really, really fast, really competitive. He won yesterday with a 2-2, but man, Kenny was all over him in that second moto, and he showed just a lot of grit. The guy is really, really, really fast and very impressive so far this year. I don't think that, again, most people would have thought he would have come out and been like the series favorite by any means, but he's showing right now that he's legit, and I think he could well be the guy at the end of this year that is the champion. Kenny, speaking of him, he was fast as crap yesterday. I mean, he only ended up with a 3-3, but he had I think he started 14th, 15th, something at the start of the second moto, and was just ripping through dudes. And obviously, it's hard to get all the way to the front. You have to be really next level to catch the leader, giving yourself such the hole to start out in. But to come up together with a 3-3 after, salvaging that's the kind of stuff that, makes you a champion at the end of the year. He's only, I think, 3 points out of the lead with Ferrandis, so those guys are neck and neck. My concern with Kenny is, though, obviously he's shown in the past that he kind of comes out really strong and then kind of fades. He did it in Supercross a little bit. He's done it outdoors in the last few years. I mean, he's a 2-time 450 national champion, so he has shown in the past he has the the ability to do it. In 2016, he was completely dominant all year. It was like just crazy how dominant he was. He hadn't really shown that speed then. He hurt his arm the next year and really hasn't ridden back to that level. But he showed yesterday, man, he looked really fast. And that track is so technical, all those ruts and off cambers and stuff. I think it really suited his riding style. And just watching him, he's just so fun to watch, the lines he takes and stuff. Guys like him that excel on technical tracks, like Marvin Musquin. I'd even put like a Chase Sexton who has a really smooth technical riding style. I think it really shows on a track like High Point where, it's just really, really tricky just to be able to find the right flow around the turns and what have you. It was a really, really exciting and fun race to watch, even though he didn't win. You got AC, who's been very fast. Unfortunately, AC has been AC so far this year. Adam has blazing speed. He's shown that in the 250s, even on the 80s, all through his career. Hasn't always been able to keep it together. I don't know that he turned a corner yesterday by any means. It still feels like to me like you're going to get that balls out speed and then that tip over, that crash, that dumb thing. He was lucky in that first moto just to have that not cost him. He would have been better off to wait a second, but instead he kind of pushed it, and he's lucky as he was that close to the finish line when he got taken out by that lapper. But in any case, that's kind of an AC modus operandi. I'm not sure what happened in the second moto. Maybe he got arm pump or something, but still a really good finish for him overall. Consistent. That's what he needs. He needs to put these motos together. I don't think anybody's surprised that he can win. The surprise is, if he can do it consistently like he did a couple of years ago in the 250 class. I love Adam. He's an awesome guy. I certainly hope he puts it together, but I'm not quite ready to put him up there, in the Ferrandis category of somebody who's going to be there every week and be a legitimate title contender. Another guy I'd say who's been really impressive this year, and that I mentioned earlier, is Aaron Plessinger. Plessinger had that great 250 season, and then the last couple of years in the 450s has been really disappointing. Now, some of that even outdoors has been injuries. He kept hurting himself in Supercross. Put you behind the 8 ball, never really kind of got his mojo going. But I think, he is showing that he is much more of a legitimate threat. I don't know that he's, a person I would say he's going to come out and rip some moto wins off, but it wouldn't surprise me. He early on in, I think it's the second moto, he looked like he was going to be really fast, and then he faded back. So I don't know what happened there. He still has a little ways to go, but showing much, much more competitive speed at the front. So it's good. The more contenders you have, the better the series is. It's been really exciting, even though really Kenny and Dylan have been the class of the field so far. You have a lot of guys that are kind of that second tier, or even, I would say Adams in that first tier, just maybe not consistent so far. I love seeing new guys win. I would, if you could have a new guy win every week, that would be the ideal, wouldn't it? And I think there's several guys you could say, like a Tomac yesterday, who finally kind of put things together in that second moto, who had the potential to get in there and mix things up. I was actually kind of surprised when Tomac, I almost was ready to write him off. I got to be honest. He's had such a kind of a mediocre year overall, but I mean, this is kind of what he did in Supercross too. He was off the pace, and then he'd win and then be off the pace again. I don't know what's going on with him. There's a time when you just, it's the time's over. You're no longer really a week in and week out winner, and I think Eli might be at that point in his career. Much like a guy like Marvin Musquin, who, has had a lot of injuries. I would still say Marv is a threat to, win a moto here and there, even win a race if, he gets everything kind of fall his way. But he hasn't really shown the raw speed to be just rifling through the pack. So I think he's to the point where he needs a good start. He's not, right now on Kenny or Dylan's level where, they get a 12th, 13th, 14th place start and they're ripping to the front. And, they're one of the few guys that are doing that right now. And Kenny is really kind of an enigma. It's interesting because, again, he had fairly, up and down Supercross season. It wasn't like he was dominant. He was dominant like for 3 or 4 rounds early on, and then kind of had a lull, and he's kind of head scratching. And I think a lot of people, obviously, from listening to what he said, were expecting him to be way off. He didn't race last year. I was concerned that maybe, he wasn't even going to ride the outdoors, and then for him to come out and be just so damn fast and competitive is super exciting. I really, really hope, Kenny at least keeps it together and makes it a title fight to the very end. It's, that's basically, I don't really have any great, thoughts about who I really want to win. I just want to see a great series, a great championship fight. I'd love to see AC or Cooper Webb. They're kind of my favorite guys. Kenny's kind of in that as well. But if Dylan wins, as long as it's a good fight, I don't care. I'm also, I'm here for the racing, and I think so far we've been really lucky, and the racing's been really great. Even if it's a race where Kenny is kind of been checked out at the front, you got some really great racing right behind him. So the fact that there are like 10 guys that are so competitive so far has been really, really great for the series, and I hope it continues. The biggest disappointment I would say so far has to be Zach Osborne. So bummed for Zach. I was so excited for him. That's a guy I do, pull for. He's from Virginia, where I live, and he seems like such a nice guy. My few interactions with him, he's been really great to me, and I really, really wanted to see him come out there and run that number one plate, but clearly, his back injury is pretty bad. I hurt my back years ago and pretty bad crash, and that's one of the scariest injuries to have. Obviously, I think it's probably all our greatest fears to have something go wrong with our back. Obviously, worst case, you're paralyzed or something. But even if you're not paralyzed, you can live with like chronic pain the rest of your life. It can be a really debilitating injury. My mom has a similar situation with some serious back injuries, and it's one of those things where, if you don't treat it right or something goes wrong, it can really haunt you the rest of your life. So it's not worth pushing it. I'm glad to see he's pulling out of it and not trying to make it worse. I don't know the nature of his injury. I haven't talked to him about it, but I know backs in general are tricky. Even if things, you get them quote unquote fixed, they can still go poorly. It's very complicated. There's so much going on in there. And I certainly hope he's back to 100%. At least he got to run the number one plate for a couple of motos, but it is a bummer that he's out. Much like Jeremy Martin in the 250 class, I think that's probably the only really downer on the series so far is like two of the main contenders are out. Jeremy came into it with, a wrist injury and hurt his shoulder in Supercross. That's the thing. He's had a tough couple of, times in Supercross, and it is a bummer that he's not in the title chase this year. I think he would have been very competitive. I mean, obviously showed him with his injuries he was capable of winning, but it is kind of a bummer that both Jeremy and Zach are out of the series. But in the 250 class, I think it's been a really great year so far. You have a surprise winner yesterday at High Point with Jalek Swoll. I certainly did not see that coming at all. Very, very impressive. I don't know if this is going to be like that breakthrough where it gets the kid on a roll, but super impressive for him. Great for the Rockstar team. I was bummed for RJ Hampshire. They didn't show in the broadcast what happened, but I guess his bike blew up, but it would have been great for them to have a 1-2. But Husqvarna, they've definitely have to be happy with that result. I'm sure they probably weren't banking on Swoll being the guy to be their winning rider for the day, and it was clear he was very excited, and I'm very happy for the kid. Behind him, of course, Jet Lawrence, who's been really fast. Love Jet. He's one of those guys that has so much personality. He's just fun, a fun guy to watch. Great style on the bike, and he's been very, very fast. He held on to the points lead, and he looks like a really, really the odds-on guy to beat this year. Cooper, he had a great day as well, but he's been very inconsistent. Jet's actually surprisingly, even though he's 6 years younger than Cooper, he's been the more consistent rider, and he was pretty consistent last year too. So the fact that he's shown blazing speed and been, even on his bad days, been able to salvage it so far, it looks like it's going to be maybe his title to win this year. I think it'll probably be a pretty good battle though. Without Martin in there, it makes it a little harder. The fact that fewer really, really fast guys, I'd say, in the 250 class that are a threat to kind of shake things up means that I would imagine these two guys will probably run away with it. But that's the great thing about motocross. Things can happen. People get injured, or all of a sudden maybe a Jalek Swoll or somebody catches on fire. So I think anything could happen. But so far, I would say it's probably those two guys that are going to make it a title fight so far this year. It looks like the Hondas are much more competitive. I know last couple of years, it seemed like the Star Yamahas really had an advantage on everybody. But it looks like those Hondas are certainly, they're getting hole shots. They seem much more competitive. The move to the factory bike, I'm not sure what exactly is different between that and the Geico situation, but it sure looks like the factory guys have got that bike working much better, and it shows at the front. Speaking of hole shots, Hunter Lawrence, that's why I would put under my disappointment. I was hoping Hunter would be right in the title fight. I think he's in third in the series still, but it's been kind of an up and down situation. That's more probably a tell of the fact that there hasn't been a whole lot of depth in the 250 class, because Hunter's results have been mediocre at best. He's had problems with falls. Yesterday was a perfect opportunity. He could have. Early on, I thought he was going to win that race. I was like, okay, he's going to check out. This is a Hunter Lawrence kind of a track, and he immediately yards it into the weeds off the track. So that was a bummer. Trying to salvage something of a day. So I don't know. I mean, I I think that the chances of him coming through and competing with his brother at the end of the year are probably not great at this point, unless he really kind of figures things out. My fear with him is always he's one of these crashes is going to put him out in the series. He's shown a propensity to be injured, so we'll see what happens there. Behind him, I've been really impressed with Joe Shimoda. Joe has been, I would say, gosh darn it, maybe the best Japanese rider since maybe Akira Watanabe for some of you old guys, who was a world champion in the 70s. I mean, that's saying a lot. You got to have guys like Akira Narita and stuff, who are like big fish in a small pond for years, dominating in Japan. But with all fairness to the Japanese nationals, the level of competition much lower than it is on like the world stage or even the national stage here in America. And he was never really competitive to come over. Even when he came out in a race, he wasn't a threat to win really. And Joe he's shown he's able to win in Supercross. He's been very competitive outdoors. And honestly, I think he might be the fastest, Japanese-born rider in like 2 decades. It's really, I don't know. Obviously, he's not going to the next James Stewart at this point, but he's been very impressive. And a guy that, I know when he lost his Geico ride, I didn't know that he would amount to anything. And he's been very, very good. And Mitch's best rider. I mean, Mitch has had a tough year. You got to figure that going into the series, I think a lot of people thought Austin Faulkner would be the guy on the pro circuit bike, but it hasn't worked out that way. Austin's having a tough year. I don't know whether he's just still recovering from the injuries he's had in Supercross or what, but just really has been off the pace. And you got to think, I think he was thinking about moving up to the 450 class. So it's definitely not a great way to try and put out your name on your resume there to try and get a ride for the 450 class next year. If I'm Factory Kawasaki and we're letting Eli go and we're moving Faulkner in, I'd be a little concerned at this point, but who knows? I mean, obviously, things could go all kinds of different ways. Things can shape up. He might, come out and be on fire the next 5-6 rounds. So, in any case, I hope that's the case. It'd be great to see a little more guys up front and challenging Jet and Cooper at the front, but it's hard to say. Motocross, what makes motocross great? Again, like I said, I really don't care who wins as long as it's a good race, clean racing, and it's exciting to the end. That's the important thing for me, and I've been getting what I want. The tracks have been really great. Again, I like the fact that the tracks have been a little different and not just the whole sameness of the dirt. I think that's mostly due to the weather conditions coming into the race. They don't want to rip it too deep and make it too wet, but I think it's shaped up and making the tracks more racy and more exciting. So here's hoping we get a great rest of the year. 3 rounds in, it's been awesome. The racing has been great. Yesterday, particularly in High Point, was really, really exciting to watch. I don't, unfortunately, get to watch the races live. I work for a car dealership. I'm the sales manager there in Virginia here, and I got to work on Saturday, so I don't get to live tweet it like I used to be able to. But anyways, it's still fun to go home and watch the racing when I get done, and I just thought it'd be fun to give you a little update on my thoughts. So I'd love to know what y'all think of the series so far. If who you think might win at the end of the year, good, bad, or indifferent, leave a comment in the section below. I definitely read them and respond. And until we meet again, this is Tony Blazier with Motocross Vault. Keep the rubber side down. Peace. Hello, it's Tony Blazier. I'm the man behind the Motocross Vault, and I wanted to take a quick second just to tell you about one of the exciting projects I'm involved with for 2021. Last fall, Ken Fott, who was a longtime editor of Dirt Rider, Jennifer Emig, and Grant Langston came to me and actually offered an opportunity to become a partner with a new business venture they were working on, Speed and Sport Adventures. And what Speed and Sport is a high-end opportunity to go on adventure rides with famous athletes from the off-road and motocross community. Our first ride is going to take place in Park City in 2021, and Guy Cooper and Grant Langston are going to be the tour guides for this ride. We're going to be staying at a very high-end resort. You're going to be able to hit the trail with these guys, bench race with them, spend a couple of days with your heroes. I know that kind of thing. It really got me excited. It's something I would love to do. And our first ride will be with Grant Langston and Guy Cooper at Park City. And I'd love you to take a look at our website, get an idea what we're doing there, and see if it might be something you might be interested in. The website is speedandsportadventures.com. I'll put a link in the description below if you'd like to check it out. You might be interested in going on one of these adventure rides. We'll be expanding this over time, adding new riders and what have you. But I think it's a really, really fun opportunity for somebody who loves motocross and off-road riding. It's not going to be, obviously, a real high, intense ride. It's more like a pleasure-type deal. But I think it's something that would appeal to certainly a guy like me, older. I'm not looking to go kill myself on the bike anymore. But it'd be cool to spend a couple days with these guys. So, in any case, speedandsportadventure.com. And I appreciate all the support everybody gives me.